All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to go ahead and start off with introducing Debbie Nez Manuel, and she's going to go ahead and lead us in a morning prayer.
Thank you, everyone. Yate she sandra kinin shle tatna betni pashishin titna jenny dashiche trabahan dashanale she late what de yesadet nasha when the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community Shugan. Shalchine a tra Megan do Haley do Shantin Dalia Ado Shesti a Royce Manuel. Thank you so much for this opportunity to work with an amazing group of young women to highlight some of their public service here in our state and to elevate the work that they're doing, not just during the term of their reign, but during in a historical pandemic, something that is a first for many of our young people and probably an opportunity to learn so much about what's happening not just here in our community, but across the state and around the world. So as we get started, we'll keep in mind all of the speakers that we have, our families who support these young women, and especially to our community leaders who are in the midst of planning for our well-being. So if we can just take a moment to bow our heads. خدا هجان داله شما نهستان یادت کس جوهنا تهنا هایول کاف نهودت نهود سوی چالکیل تسنا جنه صوت زف دوگوسلی دبنسا زف ناو دلی زف جوه تواناش چین اتوریاج. Now we ask you to be with our children around the state, around the world, young people who are being cared for right now during this pandemic, and for moments that they experience as young people, the uncertainty that they face each and every day. Now we ask you to be with our children as they grow and as they connect with one another, as they make friendships and as they form alliances together. Now we ask you to be with their parents who care for them each and every day, who guide them and encourage them in their academics, in their daily lives, in their sports, and their activities. We ask you to be with their grandparents, to help care for them, the grandparents who leave them with seeds of philosophy, teachings, and understanding about what's happening in this world. And we thank all of our community leaders, those who are with us each and every day, that are taking care of our institutions and education and in law enforcement, in law and policy, in our legislative places, and our schools and communities. No matter where they're at, we ask you to think about our community leaders and our tribal leaders, those that are both in front of the people and those that are making things possible behind the scenes. We ask you to be with each and every one of them, and to all of our traditional people, all of those individuals who sustain who we are as Indigenous people today. We ask you to send them healings and prayers. And for all of our families who are impacted by COVID-19, those that have lost family members, we pray that they find healing and strength and courage to meet the next day. We ask you to be with each and every one of them and guide our young people that we are with today. Join them in the efforts that they carry out in our communities. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate the work that you are doing, Kiara, as our Morning Star leader. You're always there helping out whenever you can, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Next, we're going to go into a land acknowledgement. We want to make sure that we're respecting the land that we're on and acknowledging the tribes that were here before us. So there is a banner that'll pop up, and it'll have a phone number down there, 907-312-5085. If you just go ahead and text your phone number to that, or text your zip code to that phone number, it'll let you know what land you're on. So I went ahead and texted my zip code, which 85306, and I am on Ekimel Odom land, which is Upper Pima, Hohokam, and Odom land. So that's the land that I'm on. Make sure you check that out and just learn about the cultures and the tribes that are where you're at now. So next up, we're going to go ahead and introduce Lexi. So Miss Lexi James is the 24-year-old daughter of Jacqueline James. She is Corn Clan from the village of Tewa. She is currently employed as a youth liaison for the Hopi Opportunity Youth Initiative. She currently serves as our Miss Native American USA 2019 to 2021, promoting her platform of suicide prevention and mental health wellness. Alongside her job and title, Lexi serves as a board member for the Arizona nonprofit Furry Precious Miracles. More recently, she became the co-founder for the grassroots organization Nurturing Indigenous Intelligence, and their mission is to support Indigenous students during trying times, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic affecting Native tribes. So we're going to go ahead and welcome Lexi.
Hello everyone, good morning. Sengi Natamo, Hiwait Natamo, Kunaa, Hi Kyampo, Na Lexi James Gangoka, Na Zivu Mana Gangoka, Na Kulu Toa, Na Polakaka Idangomo, Na Mia Jackie James, Na Miss Native American USA 2019-2021. So again, good morning everyone. My English name is Lexi. My Hopi name is Dibuwana. I am Corn Clan from the village of Dewa. My mom is Jacqueline James, and I am the current reigning Miss Native American USA 2019-2021. I know that's a mouthful. I really want to thank you, Ms. Kiera, for welcoming me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to help co-host, and this is again something that's never been done before. Or a lot of times we see royalty out and about. We see them at events. We see them at parades. We see them at banquets, at pageants, but we never really take the time to ask, what does your crown represent, or not only the design, the materialistic design that we see here, but what does it mean to you? And so I'm very excited. Like I mentioned, I'm Miss Native American USA 2021, and with the pandemic going on, it's a lot of us were kind of wondering, what's going to happen to our title? Are we going to get to go on another year? Are we going to have a pageant? Are we going to try a virtual pageant? And that alone seemed like a big obstacle. So much like a lot of my sisters who we got our reigns extended for another year. So we'll see how this goes, and we're excited to check it out and see how navigating this virtual event life will go for royalty. And I know a lot of us miss traveling, we miss going to pageants. I recently watched a virtual pageant for the Miss White Mountain Apache Queen, and I really got like comfy, like I was at a pageant. I got my snacks, my drink, and I was really intently watching. I had my phone set up like on a tripod, and I was like, oh my gosh, like really, I was even like silent, like I was really sitting there at the pageant. I was like, oh, okay, oh my gosh, you did such a good job, and I was like really cheering them on. And I sat there thinking about afterwards, after they crowned the girls and everything, and I was like, man, I miss pageants. I really miss being there in person and seeing everybody and taking pictures, and all of that. So it's really interesting, and we're getting to see how all that's going.
Yeah, it is really interesting to think about how just everything has changed with this pandemic. There's so many aspects that we were doing beforehand that, upon reflection, now that something forced us to look at what we were doing, it's really interesting that we are adapting, and we have to, keep on going and keep changing in order to keep on living. It'll be really interesting to see how virtual events work out. Even with, concerts that were scheduled to happen, people had bought a ticket and then they're not getting a refund because it's being postponed. So I know that, with entertainment, we're really looking into, can we give a virtual experience that makes you feel like you're actually there? And that's really great that, you were saying it's like you're there. You're just very intently, watching your phone. It may be, in a way, for some people, it might be better because you get to do it in the comfort of your own home. And, that gives you access to so much more. Here in Arizona, I can go ahead and watch something happening in New York, or, vice versa. And that's really good that, we're expanding and really putting ourselves out there.
Definitely. It's so funny that you mentioned virtual concerts. Like we mentioned in my bio, I'm the co-founder of Nurturing Indigenous Intelligence, and my friends and I, we really saw a need for our kids here on the Hopi Reservation to get school supplies to them, because it's really hard for us being in such a rural area to get to to the border towns to get school supplies. A lot of families are multi-home families. A lot of families are single income families. So we saw all of these obstacles, and we're like, okay, how do we help alleviate this stress? And we gathered enough supplies for over 1,500 bags of school supplies. And it took a lot of sorting. It took a lot of stuffing bags, backpacks, paper bags, drawstring bags. And one of our members, she said, I bought a ticket to the Scotty McCreery concert. It's virtual. So she really brought her speaker. We had drinks, we had snacks, and we played the speaker. We played the concert on the speaker, and the whole house was like hearing this virtual concert, and we were like dancing when we got a chance. We were singing along to the songs that we knew, and we are like, man, this is what virtual concerts feel like. Okay, we can all hang out. We probably wouldn't have it gone all together if it wasn't virtual. So it was really interesting, and getting to see. I guess this is just a learning experience for everybody, and even a bonding experience. I'm having to help my mom figure out Zoom. I'm having to help my mom figure like, this is how you check in virtually, or this is what it's like. And man, I've never been in front of the camera so much in my life, and I feel like I'm getting ready for meetings daily with work, and then having to get ready for events weekly. And I'm just like, man, like I was never in front of the camera so much. And when I have to record messages for events, like Unity, I don't know how many takes I did of that video. I was like, man, like I kept like, no, I don't like that one, and kept redoing it. And I was just like, oh, I can't. I laughed at my mom. I was telling her, I was like, next video, I'm just gonna record and submit it. I'm not gonna watch it because I'm so tired of looking at myself. And she just started laughing. So I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna get through it. And this is such a fun way to get to know one another. And I'm actually, meeting a lot of people I probably wouldn't be able to meet, like how we'd be able to still be in person. So this is exciting, and so I'm really excited just to see the girls and meet all the new title holders.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Just being in front of the camera, I'm a journalism major. I like to be behind the camera, and it really has been that learning experience, and that really just like a learning curve for a lot of us. And I know we were talking about this earlier that, with Zoom and people having access to school supplies, on top of that, there's, the issue of access to Wi-Fi and internet, which is so crazy because it's so essential to so many people, but so many people are also lacking, the access to that. So that's something that, we have to work on and adjust, especially since we are doing this virtually. Like students are going to school online, which if you don't have access to internet, that really puts you at a disadvantage. And that's something that as a society, and, we'll get into this later as well with voting, that's something that we really have to work on. So
definitely. And seeing a lot of our Native communities greatly affected is a lot of things that we take for granted before. Like I'm sure like if you live in the inner city, you have access to Wi-Fi, there's restaurants, there's libraries, if you don't have it at home, you can go find a place to do that. And now with the limitations of being able to gather in person, or staying 6 feet apart, and all of these things, and we talk about internet connection being such a obstacle. And for a while I was working off just solely my phone. I was like, I'm gonna work just based off this, and fighting my sister for my laptop when she started school because the school ran out of supplies, and we had to wait for them to issue her own laptop and hotspot. And now getting it figured out. But I remember not even that long ago, when we started school, school started here out on the reservation. I went to the post office. I was doing like my daily errands, and there's community buildings that are offering free Wi-Fi. You can sit in the parking lot and use it, safety of your own vehicle. And I got it back in my truck, and I was sitting there opening my packages, and because online shopping has become essential now, and I looked to my right, and I saw this family sitting there, 2 parents and 2 children with their folding chairs. It looked like a ice chest, almost like a little sack of snacks, and they were both sitting there with their kids doing virtual learning. And I don't know why, but that just broke my heart, because I thought, yes, school supplies were good, but there's lots of work to be done. And I'm sure with our tribal leaders, they're working very hard to make sure that our people have the necessary resources to do virtual learning, to work from home, and to do all this. But that's also where our title holders come in. We're spokespersons for our tribes, for our people. And whether you're on a national level with a national title, or you're on a tribal level, you're still that spokesperson for your people. So I think it's awesome that we have our own representatives here online. So maybe let's welcome our first speaker.
Of course. So first off, we're going to introduce Miss Gila River, Miss Elise Marietta, and we'll go ahead and add her in. Hi, Elise. All right. So first, I think you're muted. All right. I'm going to go ahead and would you like to introduce yourself for us?
Marietta, Miss Hill River,
I think you're still.
Oh, there it goes. Your sound's working.
Chugget, Elise Marietta, Miss Hill River 2020, and Og Oab Chugget, Kenneth Marietta Bot, and J Oab Chugget, Natalie Mendoza, and Wux Oab Chugget, Marvin Marietta Bot, and Gaga Oab Chugget, Carmelita Kisil Valdez Bot, and Baba Oab Chugget, Raul Mendoza, and Lidu Oab Chugget, Marjorie Holiday. Hello, everyone. My name is Elise Marietta. I come from District 3 of the Hill River Indian community, traditionally known as an Arizona State University college graduate with a degree in filmmaking, and current employee at the Hill River Broadcasting Corporation, which is a low-power station on my community. I'm blessed to be a part of this and get to interact with other tribal royalty. I know that's something that we've been lacking, because we usually kind of do our touring circuit. So it's so nice to get to know the ladies through this virtual world, everyone else to get to know us through this platform as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you. So I just wanted to go ahead and ask you the first question. So who designed your crown, and what do you think inspired their vision?
Is right here, obviously. Let me take it off for you so you can get a better look at it. This is the designer of my crown. His name is Ricky Francisco, and he's from District 3 of our community. That's probably recognized by almost all O'odham tribes, the sister tribes, which is Gila River, Salt River Nation, and that's the man in the maze. And this is a traditional story that's told within our communities, and I'd love to tell you the story, but right now it's not storytelling season yet, so maybe you have to stick around and find an O'odham that knows the story when winter comes. But on the sides is the whirlwind designs, and I think it's just beautiful. My crown is made of devil's claw and cattail, and traditionally our tribe is known for basket makers. The women traditionally carry on the teaching and the doings of the basket making, but like other tribes all across the US, there's a scarcity of passing down those traditions. So the men in our community have taken up that responsibility of practicing basket making as well. And so it's such an honor to be wearing a design made by a non-traditional, I guess, basket maker, Ricky Francisco again. And I think the inspiration was just to make the biggest crown, I can tell, but that's okay because I have a big mole, a big head, so it makes it look bigger. But I think it just really attests to an O'odham woman herself, because as O'odham, we're not very showy people. We're very modest in the sense of, like, our jewelry isn't really flashy. Our traditional wear isn't very flashy. We wear traditional cotton outfits, and so it just really ties into the teachings of.
Awesome. And I wanted, to kind of follow up there. how do you carry that modesty and, that humbleness, throughout your daily life? Like, how has that helped you become who you are, and how you would, become a better person with those teachings? I think you're muted, maybe. We still can't hear you.
I think her sound was lagging because I can hear it come
Okay.
through.
Okay, we will go ahead and ask, we'll ask Miss Angela Noah, and we'll get back to Elise when we figure out the sound. All right, hello. So this is Miss Angela Noah, and she's going to go ahead and introduce herself really quickly, and then she can go ahead and follow up on that same question.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. It's good to see you all. So my name is Angela Noah. I'm the current reigning Miss Indian University of Oregon. Pageantry is pretty new out here in the Northwest. So I'm a member of the White Mountain Apache tribe in Sibique, Arizona. I'm a sophomore. I'm studying public policy and nonprofit management. But I'm a cultural ambassador, part of our Native student on campus. And a couple of years ago, a lot of women in our community, we got really excited about having like Miss Indian World come through. And so we wanted to start a platform with tribal royalty. And I grew up in pageantry, so I get really excited about running for tribal court, being a part of it. I love the behind the scenes, and just support and like understand what it means to show up for your community, especially during this time. I really was looking forward to a year of, bringing back home like the title. But what ended up happening is we did a virtual pageant. This was in the spring, and then plans for the crown also slowed down. So COVID-19 has impacted my reign, but it kind of helped me like realize what it means to show up and not represent myself, but still show up without a title. So as you all can see, I don't have the crown present with me right now. That's because it's still being beaded. And those plans were kind of stalled and slowed down. So I hope that the crown will be here within the month. I'm really excited about it, but being able to grow and just say, okay, like I have a title and I need to really take up space and teach others what being royalty means. But I'm really excited because it's pretty new. I'm the second that's been crowned, and my vision and my hope is that I want to come back to U of O and just see how far the program took off, see the consistency. So yeah, that's a little bit about who I am, a little bit of my platform. And I apologize, but I didn't hear the question at the beginning.
Yeah, so that question was, who designed the crown and what do you think inspired their vision? Since you don't have it, do you want to describe, the beadwork that's being done or the colors or anything like that?
Yeah, so our mascot is a duck. It rains a lot here in the Pacific Northwest, which is really new to me as a Southwest, Indigenous person. I miss the sun. The rain comes for like 9 months out of the month. So I get pretty light skin out here. I miss Arizona so much. But the beater is an elder from our community. He's a Native educator teaching middle school online right now, Jacob Billy. So I'm really excited to be working with him and his family. I didn't want to put much pressure, but I just check in with my bead maker and ask, how can I support you? How are things going? And I really loved Jacob. One of the things that he tells me is, oh, I'm in prayer right now, or I don't like to touch the beads when I'm not in a good headspace. And, these are really trying times. And so for him to still be able to make space to pour his heart work and his passion into the beadwork has taught me a little bit of just being patient, and I'm recognizing that I still want to honor and hold these things sacred to me. These I get really excited about putting on regalia, but we need to do it with a kind heart. We need to still practice it and assure, make sure and we know that it's sacred. Beadward is sacred. So Jacob has taught me that part of it. And it'll just say our committee is currently, because it's so new, we want to get this right. So the title was Miss Indian University of Oregon, but we're actually considering changing the name from Indian to Indigenous, just because we feel it better reflects our Native Student Union, which is an interesting conversation to have a tribal royalty. But I would love to hear, there's a lot of different platforms and what royalty members experience, but to be able to pave the way and be one of the second, I'm really excited, and just want to make sure that the girls who are coming after me feel seen, feel honored, and be able to describe what it took for us to get here, because it's still in the making and we're still learning what this means. But I'm pretty honored to be in this space, and I can't wait to share the crown with you all when it comes. I'm really excited about that.
That's great. I'm really happy for you that, you're first, one of the first being the second. And it's so great that you are a part of creating this change at your university and in that, and in the Northwest. So I wanted to ask you, what do you want from the public? What is that call to action you want from the people watching and everyone else?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of what I stand for has to go with just my personal upbringings, who I am as an Apache woman. And one of the things that I like to highlight that's part of my identity is that I'm a non-traditional student. So what that means is that I took some time after high school before committing to college. When I was a senior in high school at Chemawa Indian School, I wanted to be a social worker. But a reality set in. I'm the first in my family to have obtained my high school diploma and the first to ever set foot on a campus. So it took a lot to break these doors down and these barriers. I had a lot of support getting here, but it felt pretty lonely. So I want to highlight that there's I would say there's a small part of group, if anyone's story is similar, that they felt maybe college wasn't for them. They didn't have the money. I had to navigate and answer these really hard questions of how do I become a college student? How do I want to be a first generation. I want to have a degree. How do I make space for, as an older sibling, there are 7 of us and I look after all of them. So I really want to be a good role model for them. So I would like to promote that there's a lot of hard sets against higher education. It's very intentional why Native American youth have the highest rates of being dropouts in high school. And there's a K through 12 education system that's failing and wipes out Indigenous narratives. So just taking up space unapologetically, and then Native women empowerment, I feel, are 2 platforms that I like to steer. So that's a little bit about who I am.
Yeah, that's really great. Especially, the higher education. And you're right, it's absolutely intense. Welcome back. Yeah, so it is very intentional, and it's really great that you're making these strides and hoping to better the community.
Thank you so much.
Right. Of course. We're going to go ahead and bring Miss Elise back. All right. All right.
I think my voice is fixed. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Cool.
All right. And so I wanted to go ahead and ask you about the humble and kind of just living your life humbly and modestly, and how that, has helped you grown as a person.
I think when we think of being humble and modest, like we have to think beyond just the outward appearance, because I think when we think of modesty, we think of, dressing very like covered up and things like that. But I think it's more of an attitude or a mindset for women, especially Autumn women. We do things without having to be asked, and we don't ask for anything in return. Our tribe is known as a hospitable tribe. We make people feel welcome. We make people feel loved. When you come to us, you're going to come and get a big bowl of red chili and a popover, and you're going to leave full. Like, that's just what's in our hearts. And I think when I live by that, I think about the women in my life that have taught me how to put others before myself. And I think through that, I've really found how to serve my community in that way. And putting others before me really makes me feel like I'm giving myself love, because I love seeing other people happy. So I think that's how being humble and modest really plays into who I am as a woman today, and also the overall Autumn women.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And those teachings, like you said, it's not just about outward, it's also inward. And just, being the best version of you helps the people around you also be the best version of themselves. So I also wanted to ask you the similar question. What is your ask of the community? What would you like them to do to help them be the best versions of themselves?
That's a great question. It definitely leads into our royalty platform for the Miss Hill River Royalty Court. In conjunction with my junior miss, our platform is self-care. When we think of self-care, we often think of pampering yourself, taking time for that. Yes, that includes that, but also looking at self-care in the aspects of our physical being, our spiritual being, and in our emotional being. So we're looking at our body, mind, and spirit, and making sure that we're balanced in between those things. And I think once we find that balance in life, like, life just gets easier. And when those hardships come, you're prepared for it. You're stronger to get through that. And then also, as a community, when we focus on ourselves and bettering ourselves in those ways, we get better for other people. So we're also making ourselves stronger for those who need it in the long run. So I guess my ask for everyone out there is to support us by maybe attending our events. We're planning some really cool events at the end of the year that are all going to be virtual. So we're opening that to our community members. And then also along those lines is also the big, focus. I'm pretty sure all the royalty are focusing on the census and getting out the vote. Those are two big things in our communities right now that we need to educate people on and make sure they understand, like, the actions we take now are going to affect us in the future. And especially our young generation, once you set those patterns of participating in our democratic process, it's a thing that you're going to do throughout your life, and it's very important. It affects all aspects of our community life, the funding that we get, the programs that are here in the community that help each other. So just getting the word out there that it's so important that we get out there and do our census and to vote.
That's awesome. Yeah, voting is very much important. That's actually our next little topic here is about voting and going to iwillvote.com. For all of our viewers watching, if you're not registered to vote, make sure you are registered. And if just look out for those early mailing ballots. Make sure that you mail in or you drop off your mail-in ballot or you actually go into the polls and vote. We really want everyone to get out there and make sure our voices are heard. Like we were just discussing, it's very important, and we want to make those changes. So thank you so much, Elise.
Thank you for having
Awesome.
me.
Thank you, Miss Gila River Esquele. That was a beautiful presentation. And I think coming up from up north, it's always nice to be in Atam land and enjoy it. And I always look forward to the fairs down there and going and visiting family and friends that I've made over the years. And one thing I've always admired is the beautiful weaving that your people do, and the crowns. I'm always like admiring. I'm always like, oh my gosh, like those are so pretty and they look so like nice and light. And I was just like, oh, I just always like admire, and all the shells. That you all wear and that you adorn yourselves with. And I think that's the one of the beautiful things that I've really gotten to appreciate and learn about. Even realizing that in Arizona, you know, we have 22 federally recognized tribes, and learning how all of our jewelry different, and we do it so subconsciously sometimes when we're out and about, and then you see someone wearing jewelry and you're like, hey, that person's native, but then you can kind of figure out what tribe they are based on their jewelry. And I find myself doing that. So when I see someone wearing shells, I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're Atam, or you know, different things like that. So it's really awesome, and we just really appreciate your presentation, and even honoring your teachings, that right now it's not storytelling time, and sticking around for that. So when you do host a storytelling time, maybe about your crown, I'm here. Hey, I'm ready, and we'll be ready with snacks, listening to you know, the story behind the man in the maze, and your different designs like that. So thank you again, Esqueli.
Sapo, thank you for having me here. It's thank you for giving me the opportunity to share, you know, the story behind my crown. I think it's such a beautiful thing to hold this crown physically, and then just spiritually what it stands for. And I hope I represent the family that it comes from, the Francisco family from District 5, and my community as well, you know, in upholding those teachings and the traditional values that we have as Atam people. So thank you for having me again. And for everyone out there, don't forget to do your census and to go out and vote. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that was those are so beautiful. Thank you again to Ms. Gila River and to Miss Oregon University, correct? That was her full title. And oh, that was so awesome, you know, and it's really cool to see our native people going off into a Western society, you know, like college, you know, a colonial institute, and excelling and you know, exceeding expectations is always something so beautiful. And to hear her story about being you know, first generation student, being the oldest, and I think those of us who are the oldest of our siblings, you know, we feel that pressure, we feel the need to, you know, take care of our younger siblings and to be good role models for them. So I think it's awesome that her story is so unique to her, but it also speaks volumes to a lot of our native people. Being the oldest, being a first generation student, and being the first to even graduate high school is a big deal. And I think about that often, but I guess it was interesting how our conversations prior to this have led up to this event, where we were talking about, you know, not apologizing. That was a big deal. And even just having that little conversation this morning, I kept thinking about it, and I said, man, I apologize a lot when I go before council. I'm always apologizing, to being like, sorry for taking up your time. And after I think about it, I'm like, you know what? No more apologizing. Like being unapologetic, you know, and taking up that space, and indigenizing those spaces that, you know, ultimately weren't created for us, and to be there and exist and excel and exceed expectations, and, you know, paving that path for those that, you know, maybe college might not seem like the track for them right now, but, you know, down the road they'll be like, okay, you know, maybe I will go to college, maybe I will do this, and maybe. So it's so awesome how it all works, and these little mini conversations we've been having have led up to this. And these women are so articulate. They're just like, they're on point, and they're like ready to go.
It's so great. And like Miss Gila River was saying, you know, about modesty and how it's much bigger than how you look. I feel like as women, a lot of times we're taught to be modest, but in the wrong sense of, you know, be quiet, don't make noise, don't take up space, just kind of come here, do what you need to, and leave. Don't speak unless spoken to. You know, we kind of are taught that way as like a society. That's how women in the United States seem to, you know, kind of be taught. And that idea of not apologizing, and, you know, if something if you need to apologize for something, maybe kind of flip it. So instead of saying, sorry, I'm late, how about thank you for waiting for me? It's more of, of the perception of it and making sure that, you are being respectful, but also you deserve respect from other people as well. So it's really great, like you're saying, that these many conversations that we've been having all morning are kind of trickling into these wonderful women who are just teaching us and teaching others about what's going on.
Definitely. It's awesome to be able to gather this female power and honor that power that is in us as women, and not just as women but as Native women. And there's a certain kind of magic that you get when Native women gather, and it's so empowering, and you feel like whatever comes your way, we'll get it done. And we joke, my friends and I, we're very loud laughers. We have really big, the anti-laugh. We very much embody that. And even I think back to when I was crowned, when I won my pageant that night. Two of my friends, very good friends, showed up, and they're also title holders. And we were gonna pose, but we were just kind of like taking in that moment, and we all laughed. And it's that like throw your head back, like move your whole body kind of laugh. And it was actually captured like as a picture, and I posted it, and people were like, oh my gosh, I can hear this picture. Like I'm just looking at it and I can definitely hear it. And when it's just so beautiful when you have strong women excelling in whatever path that they're in. We have our college students, we have our employed women, we have, all of these things who we weren't supposed to be here, and it's just so awesome to see that we've taken pageants and indigenized them. We've taken beauty pageants and made them relevant to Native culture. We've taken voting and made it relevant to Native culture, and we've taken even the census. I'm not sure if people have seen the No Reservations cartoon, and there's one that I love. It's so funny. Pueblos were known for our big bread ovens, and there's the cartoon of the census worker going and knocking on the bread oven because it's so big, he thinks it's a home. And he's like, hello, like, have you taken the census yet? Or, I'm here to count you. And the natives are watching them from the home in the back, and they're like, why is he knocking on the bread oven? And doing, things like that. It's so beautiful Native culture that you can give us anything, and we'll make it Native, we'll indigenize it, we'll make it relevant to our people so that they can understand it, and we can all, be on the same page somehow. So indigenizing spaces that weren't meant for us is awesome. And even like this technology. So with our powerful lineup that we have today, let's go ahead and welcome in Miss Hopi, Miss Aon Winter Albert.
Hi. Nit tawahong si yan matiwa, but na Aon Albert yan pahan matiwa, nit nawawangwa, but na sangopaf mana. Thank you guys for having me today. My name is Tawahongsi, and my English name is Aon Albert, and I am Snow Clan from the village of Sangopavi. I'm also a graduate from Seattle University. I currently work for the Hopi Opportunity Youth Initiative, and I work alongside Lexi in many different forms, not only at work, but I am also part of the Nurturing Indigenous Intelligence group. And so that's a little bit about who I am and where I come from. And my platform for the year is creating self-value through artistic expression.
All right, that's awesome. So the first question that I wanted to go ahead and ask you was what, you kind of just touched on it, but what are your aspirations as a title holder, and how does this lead to more goals you have in life?
Yeah, of course. So my platform is creating self-value through artistic expression. And the reason I chose that is because I feel that for myself, I ran for the Miss Hopi title to honor all of the teachings that were given to me by my mothers and my grandmothers and my aunts and all of the female role models who have made a positive impact in my life. But also on the same coin, I have a lot of very influential men in my life, most of which who are artists. And so in choosing my platform, it was sort of to pay my respects to them and all of the teachings that they have given me. And one of the main reasons that I wanted to promote art and the artistic qualities is basically what you all just touched on, is that everything within our cultures, whether it's the songs, the dancing, the silversmithing, even down to the architecture and our clothing, it has all of these artistic qualities, and nothing is done without a purpose. And so for me, creating that value, I want to make sure that we remember that as a people, because through colonization, those things were taken away from us and stripped from us. And sometimes we forget that we do have those creative DNAs running through our bodies. And I used to think that, Hopi is like the only tribe that I've really ever explored when it comes to artistic qualities. But when I went to school in Seattle, I got to spend time with the Swinomish tribe, and I was blown away all over again. And you begin to realize that it's not just one tribe, but it's all of us as a collective who have this ability to create, and to create artistically and beautifully. And I think that that's something that we oftentimes forget. Sometimes we push school on our youth and we tell them, you keep the songs and the drawings at home. But I think that, what we don't realize is that those can be incorporated into our curriculums. And that is what keeps us who we are and allows us to also express ourselves in ways that are different. And, I often hear also is, I'm not creative, but you have to really think about it, whether you're a healer or you're a comedian, all of those things tie in to some artistic quality that's inside and that you were born with.
Yeah, I love that you said that everything in all I'm going to go ahead and say all culture, all indigenous cultures, is that nothing is done without a purpose. For every action that you take, for every decision that you make as individuals, that has a reaction to it, whether it's good or bad, whatever it is. So that's really great, like a teaching to kind of take with you. Don't do anything without thinking about why you're doing it. Do everything with a purpose. I think that that's so beautiful, and that's such a great teaching to teach young women and everyone everywhere.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, my sound is probably like lagging. And we want to go ahead and ask, if you want to talk about the design of your crown and the intentions behind it, and maybe even your interpretation. It's always beautiful to hear the different interpretations from the different title holders, and even as a former Miss Hopi, like Aeon, the crown holds so many different meanings for every single girl that wears it. So let's go ahead and to talk about that. Talk about what the crown means to you, or even the design, that how you interpret it.
Yeah, of course. So the crown was actually made by a collective of artists, and there used to be this collective, I believe, back in the 80s, called the Hopi Guild, and they kind of formed this sort of artist association. And so it has their group stamp in the crown, along with I believe the individual who actually made the crown. I'm not sure who that stamp belongs to, but most times whenever you get any sort of silversmithing or metal jewelry, there'll be a stamp in there on who the artist is. And it's always nice to, see these pieces and then figure out who it's from or who has that stamp. And most oftentimes that stamp correlates to their clan or their family or their Hopi name. And I was sort of trying to really find the background story about the crown, but there's actually a sun right in the center. And for myself, when I was growing up, my dad, he belongs to the Sun Clan, and he always used to tell me, as long as you see the sun or the moon, you're never alone. And when I was crowned, I was so nervous. I was shaking. And the first few events after that, I was shaking and I had butterflies. But then I remembered, I carry the sun on my head and I'm never alone. And that kind of eases me in knowing that I always have that family with me. And that's part of the reason also why I moved to Seattle, because, there's not very much sunlight there. So I was like, okay, get a break and be a little bit more around water. And in addition to that, my aunt, my dad's older sister, was a Miss Hopi before me, and this is the same crown that she wore. And thinking about that, you begin to realize that Miss Hopi goes far back. And when you're crowned, you become a part of this long legacy of women, and you begin to hold the hopes and the dreams of the people. And wearing the crown, you sort of feel the heaviness and the values and the dreams that all of the Miss Hopis had before you, and what their goals were and what they were working toward. And that sort of gets inserted into you. And, there are times when, you don't think you can do it, or maybe you're not the right one, or maybe you're not the right girl for the job. But you have to remember that all of these things are carried with you when you have that crown, and it stays with you. And when you're done, it's not something that you're completely done with forever. You're always part of this larger family and a larger community of women who are strong and who played that positive role for the community. So that's sort of my own interpretation of it. And it's a very large responsibility to carry, but I am so proud of it, and I love the design and all that it stands for. And even down to, I believe they probably thought about the weight of the crown too, because it's not heavy, which I have heard that crowns can get pretty heavy, but I think that they gave us a little break on that one. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Ayan. It's so beautiful to hear that your interpretation, how you embody that, and bringing your family into it, and understanding not, with who much is given, much is expected. And that's very true of any title holder. So it's awesome how you personalize it and take into account that. So, and it's always nice to see, our Miss Hopi sisters representing and, out there doing and representing to the best of their ability. So thank you. Squally Kuna.
Yes, Blake.
All right. And so now we're going to go ahead and introduce Miss Lexi James. She's been with us this entire time. We introduced her earlier. But just as a very quick refresher for any new people who have joined, Miss Lexi James is the current Miss Native American USA 2019-2021. Her platform is suicide prevention and mental health wellness, and she served as a board member for the Arizona nonprofit 3 Precious Miracles, and is the co-founder of the grassroots organization Nurturing Indigenous Intelligence. So, Lexi, do you want to go ahead and tell us about your crown and what it means to you as well?
So this crown is actually fairly new. When Miss Native American USA started, they had a rounded purple crown, and that's when I was first introduced to Miss Native American USA, was when I was actually Miss Hopi, when I was in Ayan's position, and I met the current reigning Miss Native American USA, April Yaza, and she kept we just instantly clicked, and every year after that she wanted me to run for Miss Native USA. And this year, I believe this set is maybe about 3 or 4 years old. The sash and the crown are both fully beaded. The beading wraps, all the way around the back, and it's with buckskin or leather. And the sash is also leather with beading and jewels on it. So it gets very warm. It's really quite has some good weight to it, and it's actually beaded, on the back as well. It has our logo, and sorry, this part, the front heart, is actually our Miss Native USA logo, and this part, I was told, represents the eagle, and I think that's just also a universal symbol to all Native tribes. We see eagle it's always a good sign. It's something good to see an eagle and be in the presence of such a creature that holds such importance to all of our tribes. So that's a little bit, I guess, about the design. I have the maker's name, actually. Just a moment. I have my phone on standby for my notes. Her name is actually... She is Navajo, based out of Arizona, and her name is... Shoot. I'll have to find it right here. Her name is Tanya Little Salt, and she's from Window Rock, Arizona. And it's really awesome to see. I don't know much about beading because I'm up here in Hopi, and we wear a lot of turquoise, we wear a lot of silver, and not too much beadwork. You know, it's starting to get out there more and more. A lot of our people learning how to bead, and I've been told about the stitch of my crown, and I'm just like, I'm not a beader. I'll take your word that this is the certain stitch that it is. And so that's the design of the crown, and you know, the USA colors, red, white, and blue. But I've also heard interpretations of the flag colors for the different tribes. So it's really interesting to see what the different colors mean. You know, and Hopi, these are part of our 4-direction colors. I like to joke that hopefully I'm going in the right direction when I'm traveling or when I'm, you know, doing events, that, you know, these colors are pointing me in the right direction.
I love that. And while we have you, do you want to kind of talk about your own story with pageantry, how you got started, what are your next plans, if you have any more on, you know, the pageantry track?
Oh my gosh. When I get asked this question, it's so funny. If you had told me, you know, when I was a senior in high school that I would be doing pageants as almost like I've made a career out of it, I would have laughed at you. And it's funny when I think about it, because I ran in my high school pageant multiple times. I lost the first couple of times that I ran, and then finally my senior year I won. So I joke, you know, they finally were just like, just give it to her. You know, she's run plenty of times. You know, we don't want to turn her away again. And that was a really good introduction to what I would be doing. But I'm also a non-traditional student. I didn't apply to college after high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just glad to graduate high school because, you know, life happens, and there was a lot going on in my life at that time, and the opportunity for Miss Hopi presented itself. Presented herself at my door, actually. She knocked on my door during recruitment time. Miss Hopi goes around and knocks door to door and recruits girls that are eligible to run. And so Miss Hopi knocked on my door and she said, I want you to run. And I was just like, you know, I'm not going to do that. And I think my mom knew that I was going to change my mind. So she saved my application. And then finally, last minute, I think I turned it in right at the deadline, right at 5 o'clock on the day that it was due. So it was very interesting to see how that's all unfolded. And I ran, you know, to see what it was like. I never really knew much about pageants. And when I ran, I think I shocked not only myself, but my family as well, that I won. When they called my name, I was like, I looked over, are you sure? Are you sure you called the right name? And it's been a blessing. I've met many wonderful women. I've been able to actually mentor women, young girls, to run in pageants. And I've become quite the pageant planner to do it. And myself and another former Miss Hopi, I have another friend that I've recruited to run for Miss Hopi. She was Miss Hopi 2 years after me. She also works with myself and Aeon and at our office in the Hopi Foundation. And we offered to help decorate for a local pageant. And that committee is the Veterans Association. So it's all men. It's all older men who don't know much about pageants. And we got there to help decorate because we thought that's the least we can do to help out. And they said, you know how to, put together a pageant, right? So we put a pageant together in 30 minutes and gave the girls a rundown, like, this is where you're gonna stand, don't move. This is where you're gonna stand when you give your presentation. Smile, smile, smile. So it's interesting how I got into this, and now, working to recruit women. It was really hard to, recruit women for Miss Hopi and then Miss Indian Arizona. I'm a former Miss Indian Arizona attendant, first and second attendant. I ran the first time. I got first attendant. That was in 2015, 2016, when Miss Taylor Susan was Miss Indian Arizona, and I took a year off and I ran again, and I was second attendant 2017, 2018, and that was when Miss Mariah Sharp was Miss Indian Arizona. And now I'm here. I saw Miss Native USA. I saw the pageant for myself, and I said, you know, I want to run. I want to try it. If I don't, I have till I'm 27 to win, and I will try and try again. This is probably my my highest title so far. It's interesting. I'm not used to being on a national level, but you know, we're navigating that. And then, you know, hopefully next stop is Miss Indian World if this pandemic ever clears up and they don't lower the age, because I'm slowly aging out of this area.
Oh, that's so great. That's wow, putting together a pageant in 30 minutes. That like gave me stress and it already happened.
It's a small dream, and we're just someone pull the curtains and let's get this done.
And I wanted to ask more about your platform, about suicide prevention and mental health wellness. Can you kind of elaborate on that and what you've done so far and what plans are?
So that's always been my platform. I've always promoted mental health wellness and suicide prevention since I believe I was Miss Hopi. Miss Hopi, I had included bullying because I faced bullying in high school greatly. Cyberbullying, that's when social media, you know, was just becoming a thing and people were getting access to fake profiles, you know, what have you. But this is something that's personal to me. I'm a suicide attempt survivor, and I also am diagnosed, you know, with depression and anxiety. And that is something that I've found through my years, that this isn't something that's talked about. This isn't an issue that we like to normalize. That we, you know, it's very taboo in Native cultures. So when I started talking about it, a lot of people, you know, didn't like it, but I got a big response from our young community, our young people who were saying, I didn't know that you dealt with that. I didn't know that you had anxiety. I didn't know that you suffered with depression, or I didn't know that you had this problem too. I do too, but I don't know who to talk about it because my family doesn't understand, you know, my friends don't understand, and no one seems to really get me. But you know, you've expressed that you have. And so I realized, you know, this is something that's very heavy. It's not something a lot of people can talk about, but it's a conversation that very much needs to happen. You know, Native Americans, we have the highest rate of losing our young people due to suicide. And that's not something, you know, we want attached to Native culture. That's not something we want attached to the Native population. So starting that conversation is very hard. I'm also a Safe Talk trainer. I'm a certified Safe Talk trainer, as well as Aon. We got that training at work. So, you know, we're working to make our community more suicide aware, to be able to have that conversation, to recognize the signs before it's too late, and to, you know, really get people to realize that this is people that we pass every day. You know, you could pass someone on the way to work and you don't know what they're going through, you don't know what they're dealing with, and you don't know what's going through their mind. But if you can be that support system for them and be a listening ear, and be, you know, even a shoulder to cry on, that this is going to greatly help and save lives. You know, it ultimately saves lives. So I really do push for suicide prevention, suicide awareness, and mental health well-being, and tailoring it to all age ranges, to adults, to our young adults, to our teenagers, and even down to the little kids, you know, getting them to understand that it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be overly happy. You know, whatever emotion it is, it's healthy to have these emotions, and it's healthy to express them and, you know, not hold that in. So when I talk to the little ones, you know, I really have to, you know, figure out what kind of language I'm going to use, but, you know, they get it. And if we continue to have these conversations, you know, I think it'd be a safer place for our kids. And, you know, that's all we want, is just to make it safer, where we don't have to gather for funerals because we lost a young life, because we don't want to talk about this. So that's part of my platform, future plans. Oh my gosh, I have so many, you know, starting conversations, and even hopefully making it into my own nonprofit someday to be able to utilize that. And working in a nonprofit arena has given me much perspective, but it's something that I definitely will continue to talk about even after, you know, the crowns and sashes are gone and I'm no longer a queen when I'm too old. So that's part of my platform.
That's really great. Like you said, we need to start having these conversations. I feel like with these younger generations, it's not stigmatized, it's not taboo, like you were saying, like for maybe like Gen Z. I feel like millennials really did pave that way for us to, it's okay that people go through these issues. It doesn't mean that, there's something wrong with them. It just means that they need some help. So I do feel like we're kind of transitioning there of, okay, now we can talk about it. Now what are, our next steps? Like, what are we going to do about this? So I just wanted to ask you, what's your ask of, the viewers watching, for the public? How can they support you in, your journey?
Definitely education. Education is key. And I really remind people when I give talks, I'm not a professional. I'm not licensed in mental health. I don't have a degree in mental health. I'm working there. I'm getting there, y'all. But to really normalize having that conversation, let's have those open conversations. Let's even normalize getting help, seeking therapy. Let's normalize that. Let's not shame others, and let's end that stigma. And if that's just starting these conversations, then we can have these conversations as many times as we need, and to get the point across. And let's just listen to hear and not listen to speak sometimes. So that's my ask to the public. If you need to follow me for more questions, my Instagram is there. You can find me. But that's my ask. And to utilize your voice, speak up, and make sure that you're heard.
That's great. And I just wanted to ask the viewers, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them into this, the little comment section. We'll read them as soon as they come up. Thank you, Lexi, so much. And I think I'm going to go ahead and add Debbie Nez Manuel back so we can talk about voting. Again, viewers, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Hi, Debbie.
Hi. I have been glued to my computer. I mean, I just listening to these amazing stories. All of you women, no matter what anybody tells you, know that you are incredible human beings. Just listening to you made me emotional. I went through every emotion. I was laughing. I was, just getting really deep and then coming right back up for breath. It was pretty amazing. So thank you so much for doing everything, to Miss Hopi, to Miss Noah up there at the university, and Miss Elise. All of you have really inspired me to do more. You've already moved me to act. So I'm excited to listen and just support anything that you would like to do. So, where shall we go from here?
All right. Well, I actually have a question for you, Debbie, and I want to talk about voting. As we've kind of touched on throughout all of this, we really want to make sure that people are getting out there and having their voices heard. Again, viewers, go to iwillvote.com. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you get your census in, all of that good stuff. And Debbie, I wanted to ask you, is voting an individual responsibility? We're asking people, get out there, vote, get out there and make sure your voice is heard. But a lot of people feel like my vote doesn't matter. I'm just one person. So is that true? Does one vote matter? Or, is it, what's your opinion on that?
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that loaded question. We don't have all day, so I'll try to make this as concise as possible. But Morningstar Leaders is an organization intended to service and work with Native youth and leadership development. And part of that is rooted in understanding our systems in Arizona. Well, actually, it started with our home, with a backpack drive. One of our children had asked us to do something, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, that's a huge project." They're not just asking for something small, but we took them seriously. They cared enough about it to do it, and we took them seriously. And then they pulled their friends in, and pretty soon we had a whole group of young people pulling together. And as a result of their ambition and their ideas and their vision, they served probably between 8 to 12 schools in Arizona that are in rural and remote areas. And they've distributed over 5,000 backpacks to students because they believe that quality educational tools are extremely important. And so being able to answer that question is deeply rooted in what Morningstar is about. It's about understanding systems and those gaps that exist. And so when I think about the individual responsibility, every contribution from every youth that we had in that process created something bigger. We could not do it with one student alone or one Native American student alone. We couldn't do that. It took a collective effort and a vision, a lot of adjusting and adapting and being flexible to make that possible. And it feels good knowing that as parents, as adults in the communities, that we stood by and we really supported their vision of where they wanted to go. And as we grew and we saw things, we learned from those experiences. And then we started doing a little bit more work, especially focused in voting. And I want to share my screen with you so that you can see some of the work we started here a couple of years ago, and it'll give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So a couple of years ago, we started working on this, the voices of Indigenous voters, and it was really important to find out where we all stood. And so a group of us came together and we planned a conversation into the community and said, we've got to pull people together. And we started to look at specific things that were happening in our community. And as a result, we uncovered through partnerships and collaborations that there's levels of consciousness that we each have as individuals. We are on a continuum, either in a place on the left-hand part of this continuum, in a magical place, or we're very politically engaged. We're somewhere along this continuum. And so as an individual, we have to dig deep and figure out where we're at on this and what do we want to do with it. And are we going to stay in those places? So this is a slide that was shared, some training that I took part in with Conoco, which is also one of the organizers for Institutio, who made this program possible. And then also with partnerships from Four Directions, who are really talking about voting. And so this was really important. And then understanding where community fell into this picture. And so we reached out, we created a focus group to learn more about our urban community. There was about 60 people that were interviewed, and we learned a number of things from that experience. We learned that we're registered, we're informed, and we really do vote. We appreciate mailing in our ballots, which is amazing. We also actively vote in both tribal and non-tribal elections. So that includes tribal, school boards in the county, and then also on the state and federal level. We're really paying attention. In this focus group, we also learned that we feel more connected to our tribal community network. However, we do not feel connected to legislative district officials, and we need to figure out what can we do about this. This is something that was a red flag for us. We also uncovered that we lacked information about voting, about issues and candidates. Even with all of that, the smart technology that's out there, we do not value voting. We don't value issues equally. There's certain things that we do care about, and I think that's really important to understand. And going to even digging deeper is once we uncovered where we were in that continuum of magical to being politically engaged, we were also able to figure out in all of the conversations that I was having, why do people vote? What inspires them to vote? So no matter if they're an elder, a parent, or a youth, we could determine that the reason that they were motivated to vote was either they connected really strongly with a heritage, with veterans and their service and duty that they completed, or we connected in a very traditional sense that our ancestors went through some difficult times, therefore we must, act, we must vote. And then we had some individuals who kind of were more modern thought processes that, we hear in our tribal communities all the time, is that if you didn't vote, you don't have the right to complain. That's a really modern idea. Bad officials are elected by good citizens who do not vote. Kind of a perspective of good and bad, but nonetheless, there are a lot of people who are not engaged, and that creates a burden for us when we're trying to connect with legislators and they're not hearing us. The other thing is this visionary idea is that there's this younger group who is really identifying with the values and the beliefs in their cultural systems, and they also understand how to weave it together. There is a purpose, there is something, and they are flexible and they're adapting, and they're able to see this vote really does have value and I can do something about this. I think that those were the biggest and most important findings we had in that conversation. And I think that when we're talking about this voting and the responsibility for it, it's definitely going to make a difference when we make that decision. And then when we act, it's one thing to think about it, but when we act, we really change the way things happen. So I think individually, as a household, we have 5 voters in our house, so candidates love us. But when I pull together with people on my block and remind them to vote or give them a ride to the polls or show them how to vote by mail, it makes a difference. And then when we reach across, the neighborhood or the community here, and I connect with another neighborhood and say, hey, you know what, this is what we're doing over here in this precinct or that precinct. And, can we make sure that we get people rides to where they need to go? Can we help the elders get to where they have to go? So all of a sudden that individual who is wanting to vote becomes a collective group. But in Arizona, we have huge collective groups. Navajo Nation alone can stand on their own. They can vote. When we think about the Apaches, White Mountains, San Carlos, and many of the other tribes that are connected to them, if they vote together, that's pretty significant. We think about the O'odham, the sister tribes, the Accomer O'odham and Salt River, Gila River, Ak-Chin, and Donna O'odham. They're a collective vote. They're sister tribes. When they come together, they can really do a lot. And we can hold our leaders, our elected officials accountable when we come together. But if we sit there and, have disagreements or conflicts, it's really hard to really do something that's going to really benefit us as a whole. So, that's kind of what I think about that individual vote. It's a powerful place to start, but we have to lean on each other. We have to help each other. We have to guide each other through the process. And the one thing that's, I think, even more powerful is it's free. Absolutely free. Of course, it costs taxpayers to organize ballots and stamps and all this, but the action that we take as citizens is free. It's entirely up to us. So we really don't have any reason not to participate.
Thank you so much for, explaining that. And I feel like throughout this entire conversation, one theme that you can kind of string along is that idea of coming together. We've looked at how tribes have come together and reflected their art into the crowns, and how, our royalty is giving back to the community, and what we're all the asks that everyone had, that even though they're asking for something, it's to benefit the community, and it's to bring everyone, together, and to ultimately build up our indigenous communities and make sure that, we are in, Lexi said this, taking systems that aren't for us, that weren't made for us, and indigenizing them and making sure that we are there and we do take up that space because we're all we are valued, and we are all a part of, you know, the United States now. So it's making sure that you are participating in the systems, and also making sure that how you participate benefits, you know, your tribe and benefits your people. So I'm really glad, you know, that we've had this discussion. It's been really great, and it's been a learning opportunity for me as well.
I think one of the things that's really important to understand too is the idea that any path that we create to the White House, to the state, you know, House or the Senate, or even to the governor's office, those pathways are established by Indian country. They have to come through Indian country to be able to secure those seats. And we need to be able to plan together, talk together. How do we hold these individuals accountable so that they remember that we need broadband services? They remember that we need law enforcement and first responders to fires, to homes that catch fire, to elders who need food. A lot of this funding comes from the federal level, but the state also has a significant role in that. In you know, we have to remember the value of our voice, and that's through the ballot box. It's one of the most important things we've got to remember. And I think when we hear our tribal leadership, you know, they are operating on such slim resources when it comes to time. You know, they're doing so much. There's a huge population of young people like yourselves between 18 and 24 who have amazing contributions to make. And I know that. That's why I organize a nonprofit that serves Native youth and leadership development. I know they have ideas. I know they have the energy and the vibe that they give one another to support one another through this effort, and that's what it's about. So hearing the sense of duty that these young ladies shared, you know, is really crucial to this conversation. We can't leave our young people, and we especially can't leave young women out. And I think I might have heard somewhere on this line somebody apologizing. So like I said before we started this conversation, if anybody dared apologize, they owed me $5. So I'd like to bring on all of the other ladies. I don't know if you have any more questions for me, but I think it's a good idea to bring them back on and bring them into that conversation. And maybe they have some last, some parting comments before we wrap up our live feed.
Welcome back, everyone. I don't have any more questions. I just briefly wanted to thank Morningstar leaders for, you know, organizing this, reaching out to me, reaching out to all the royalty. Like I said, it's been a great opportunity to just talk to everyone and learn. So for all the viewers, if you go to morningstarleaders.org, you can go ahead and check out everything that Morningstar is doing and learn more about the organization. It's great. I've been a Morningstar leader for, I think, 6 years now, 5 years. So it's been wonderful being a part of the organization. And again, thank you guys so much for putting it together.
And so we definitely want to bring in our green room studio. Megan and Kenzie, are you there? I want to get a group photo of our team here. Go ahead and unmute your cameras. There we go. And where is there we go. Awesome. So look at this. These are all women who are leading this effort. This is incredible. This is amazing. So I want you to look right at your camera. I'm going to take a screenshot so we can share this. Yeah, let's straighten up those crowns. I have a crown. It's really there, but so if you can lean in and look right at your camera at 1, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. So we're going to wrap this up, but we're going to stay online so we can tidy up some loose ends. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Yay.
Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Bye.
Thank you,
Have a good day.
Thank you. Ascolite.
Oh, we have to thank our donors. People who are supporting this effort. Thank you so much from Four Directions, Institutio for taking time to make this possible. We couldn't do this alone, and definitely needed all of these women to help elevate the conversation for getting out the vote. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day.